Hi, welcome to Barry's Place. My guests today are Mike and Ellen Hardy. For those of you who are not Westfordians, I will give you a brief introduction to what makes them special in Westford. In Westford, they have individually or as a couple founded the Roden Bish Community Center, Parish Center for the Arts, Westford League of Women Voters, the Westford Contra Dance, the Westford Recycling Commission, the Westford Directory. Ellen was the first woman selectman in Westford. She's been town moderator for 25 years. Mike has been treasurer of the museum and Parish Center for the Arts. And that doesn't cover everything. That covers what stands out that I happen to know.
Oh, you're so kind.
The rest is secret.
The rest, yes, well put. So, and they have been interviewed a number of times. If you Google, you can find it. And I wanted to do something that would uncover stuff that I haven't seen in interviews that already exist. So I'm going to tap what they have learned, basically, is their experience through 50 years of community service. Well, my first question is, I will start with you, and then I will be addressing both of you a lot.
Okay.
What did you learn as selectman?
Well, let's see. I learned three things, I think, as selectman. The first thing I learned was that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay.
I ran for selectman when the board went from 3 people to 5 people, so it was expanding. And what I learned was that the colleagues that I served with did not value the opinion of someone who'd lived in town for only 5 years. I was a real blow-in. I was the wrong gender. I think I was the wrong age. I was probably 10 years younger than most of the members on the board and probably 40 years younger than Hoppy Wyman. And so I just had, and I was very naive. You know, I graduated from college 5 years before with a degree in political science. So I was coming at it from a very academic, this is the way government should work. And that's not how the Westford Board of Selectmen worked, nor should it at that point in time. So I was just a fish out of water. It was a very poor match. And I didn't make it through my 3-year term, Barry. I only made it for 2 of the 3 years, and I resigned.
Thank heavens.
Yeah. With my very patient husband. It took a huge amount of time, because that's how I do things. I always put myself into things a lot. So I really was out probably 4 nights a week at meetings.
Wow.
And our sons at that point in time were 3 and 4. So it was the wrong time in my life to do it. But the good news is, for me personally, was I learned an amazing amount about how Westford works and who the people were in town government. And I learned that I didn't have to be on the Board of Selectmen to make things happen and get involved. And so I got involved in other ways rather than being on the board. So as agonizing a 2 years as that was in my life from 1972 to 74, I resigned the same year as Richard Nixon, but for different reasons. It was a real learning experience. I grew a lot. I learned, you know, not to be quite, well, I shouldn't say that because I'm still pretty cocky, but I realized that there are lots of different ways to skin a cat, and I had to be much more diplomatic. So I hope I learned from that and went on to do some other things in town that were more successful than that tenure. I think one of the things I learned from that, Barry, was that the things that I've gotten involved in the subsequent 45 years, I've tested the waters and made sure that it was something I really did want to do and sort of knew more what the guidelines were and what I was getting into before I leapt in.
Did you learn anything as a husband of the selectman?
I learned how to cook.
Uh-huh.
Ellen was out 4 nights a week, and it was either learn how to cook or starve. And I chose the former.
Wise.
It was a crazy period of time. I would come home and I'd go to bed because I was up at something like 6 in the morning to travel into Boston, and Ellen would come home at 11 o'clock at night and crawl into bed and start crying.
It's true.
So it was tough.
It was very frustrating for both of us. We just couldn't figure out.
But Julia Child saved me.
I'm so glad to hear that.
She really did. Can you tell Barry about how you met Julia Child? I mean, euphemistically.
Oh, right. The first time I saw Julia Child on television, it was black and white. It was one of her first shows. I was on maneuvers with the Air Force in the desert in Texas somewhere. And they had a little tent set up for recreation with a little black and white television set there. And I guess the only channel it got was an education channel, because I walked in one day and there were a few airmen in there watching this show, and they were watching a cooking show, and it was Julia Child. And that was the first time I ever saw her.
Wow.
I'm sure they would have been watching something else if they could have found it, but that was it.
You must have been challenged as a novice cook to have Julia Child be doing the instruction.
Well, I never felt she was challenging. She was difficult, but I guess, I mean, the recipes can be complicated, but I thought her explanations were so clear, and she told you exactly what to do. I thought it was great.
Wow. Okay. He was probably sober in those days too.
Me or her?
She.
Oh. I'll let that go.
Okay. I've read stories about her, and occasionally I've seen her on TV. I thought, but anyway.
Wonderful woman. If you want to read about Julia Child, get a book called something like Yours Truly, Julia. It's a book of letters between herself and a person in the United States while she was in France. And this person ultimately got her publisher for her cookbook. And they became fast friends through the mail over a period of a year and a half or so. And the letters back and forth are just very revealing about who Julia was as a person.
Okay.
Wonderful book.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. What have you, I assume I can address this to both of you because I bet you're both involved. What have you learned through fundraising? Something, incidentally, I've never done.
Well, I'll start with the Paris Center for the Arts. That was really your first introduction.
Yeah, I've only done it once. I don't really enjoy it. And I don't think very many people like to ask other people for money. So the Paris Center for the Arts did need a lot of money up front, $300,000 to get started. And people were very generous, but it's hard work.
Yeah, Mike's absolutely right. It's just, can't imagine going into there's now some fancy euphemism for it about what it's all fundraising. The way that we addressed it when I was involved with starting the Rodenbush Community Center, at that point the Rodenbush School was sitting empty, and a group of us who'd been looking for a place for a community center in town, for a central place for the delivery of human services. That was our goal. So here we were with this empty building, and we promised the town it wouldn't cost them any money, that we would be self-supporting. So there were some capital costs to keep that wonderful 1897 building going. So rather than sort of do these small fundraisers, we glommed on two biggies. We started the Westford Directory, and we stole the idea lock, stock, and barrel from the Lincoln phone book, which was done by the DeCordova Museum as a fundraiser. And then based on the WGBH Channel 2 auction, we did the auction. So one year we do the auction, and the other year we do the Westford Directory. And it sort of concentrated all the pain into one short period of time. You know, we worked really, really hard, the volunteers, from September, October, November, to put the directory together. And then it was over for 2 years. So that made it very doable. And we had fun. The other thing about fundraising is to make it something that's fun rather than a drudge. We had wonderful fun with the auction. People were so generous donating things, and we did that. But they're just sending out renewal letters or going to talk to people about why they should part with their money and just hand you a check. That would be the very last thing on my bucket list. Would never make my bucket list. But fortunately, the things that I've chosen to be involved with, like the Rodenbush, like the Common Restoration Project, that's been very satisfying. But I think the secret berry is to find something that, number one, you're passionate about. You can't ask people for money for something that you don't care about. And something that's sort of short-lived. It's not going to be for the next 20 years, but for the Common Restoration, it was very specific. We wanted to plant trees, and we wanted to put benches around. So we could say to people specifically, this is our goal, and people could just hand you a check, and there was their tree, or hand you a check, and there was their bench. So it was very immediate and sort of instantaneous satisfaction. So I think that's the secret to fundraising, is be passionate about yourself, make it short-lived, and make it fun, and then it's not too bad a gig.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To both of you, what in your opinion makes a good or bad public servant?
Well, here's a good example, one.
You define public servant. Do you mean that somebody's an elected official? I mean, that would be interesting to know. Just anybody who does anything for the general good? Is that how you're defining public service?
You know, it could go both ways, but let's start with an elected official.
Well, I guess I haven't been, except for my brief stint as selectman back in the 1970s. And then moderator is a very, very different role. Your only job is to run the town meeting twice a year and to appoint the finance committee. But it certainly isn't like being in the public eye and having to work with 5 or 4 or 5 or 7 other people and to come to consensus. But I guess what makes a good public servant, in my humble opinion, is someone who is thinking about the good of the public. You know, anybody who goes into the public service thinking their own ego is important or for their own benefit, that can get, I think, to be a kind of a conflict. So you really have to think, I'm doing this. I mean, I do everything that I do because I just love this town. I mean, it's just such a great place to be. And so to work on these projects and maybe make that little corner of Westford even better, I guess that is selfish. I'm benefiting me too, because it makes me feel good. But that it makes it really a better community to live. And people who go into it with that goal. But if somebody has an agenda, like they have a vendetta, you know, the Board of Selectmen did something that made them angry, so they decided to run for Board of Selectmen to get back or change that. I don't think that. Although, you know, I've seen people do that and then grow into superb members of town boards. They ran because something had made them angry and they went into it for perhaps not the most noble of reasons, but then have just really taken on the town as their cause, and they've been wonderful members of those boards. So you never know how somebody's going to evolve, no matter what their motives are when they first started. And anybody who gives their time, because it's a huge amount of time to be on the school committee or the selectmen or the finance committee or even the cemetery commission or, you know, whatever board, all unpaid. You have to give everybody credit for offering their time and their expertise to do that to the town. And we're so lucky to have so many people, hundreds of volunteers in this town who do that. So that's a public servant to me, is someone who's doing it to benefit the public, I think. But I think Mike's a public servant and he's a private man.
I'm not a public servant.
Let's see. Would it be unfair to me to bring up the Paris Center for the Arts, au contraire, the Westford Contra Dance?
Well, I don't think that's public servant, really.
You just think you're serving the community, but it's not the same umbrella?
It is. PCA is a community service. That certainly is true, and I think contra dances are a community service. I'll agree with that. Yeah. But I think public servants more as political figures.
Senators, congressmen,
Yeah.
selectmen, things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. You can argue semantics, but I look at both of you as public servants. You can take it or reject my opinion
Well.
as you see fit.
Well, you became a public servant in terms of au contraire for, again, sort of not selfish motives, but you wanted to see contra dances at the Paris Center for the Arts. I mean, I don't know if Mary knows how that came about from dance number 1 to where you are now.
I don't
Well,
actually.
that's true. The PCA was just getting going, and we were looking for things that would fill the space. And I thought contra dancing would be a good community activity to fill the space. And we tried hiring a caller and a band for a couple of dances, and financially that was disastrous because we couldn't possibly afford to pay all those people to provide the music and the calling. So with a volunteer band, which is what we have now, and a paid caller, we're just about able to squeak by. We don't make any money, but we don't lose much either. So that's a public service because we don't do it for financial reasons. But
Uh-huh. And
it's also, of course, it's also fun. I mean, the dances give the band an excuse to play. So the musicians have a lot of fun in it.
I'll bet they do. And they're good too.
They are good. At least some of them are good.
And you are good as their band pianist, I might add.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I might take issue with you on that, but
You can, but I can't do what you do. And
You
I've been
could.
playing, I'll take issue with that later. I've been playing the last 49 and a half years, and I couldn't do what you do.
I could teach you.
You're giving,
Okay.
my mind more credit than you think. What?
You teach me your theme song, I'll teach you how to vamp.
Okay. We might do that yet.
May I be the audience?
We ain't going to do it here, I'll tell
All
you that. What has been the most satisfying things that you've been involved with? I might have heard that from you already, but I'll pose it anyway to both of you.
Cooking for you? I don't know. Or music?
Right at the moment, I think Muffins on Main.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
It's an amazing happening. And of
Can
course,
you tell your audience about it? For those who aren't in Westford, I'm aware of what it is.
it's a little muffin shop. And it's in a building across the street from where we live that was built in 1839 as a general store and didn't close until 1969, right, as a general store. And then over the years it has kind of morphed into apartments and retail spaces. And the apartments have been very successful because there's a demand in Westford for apartments. The retail spaces have kind of been iffy. Lots of retail things have come and gone, mostly gone. And when we bought the building, we thought we might turn everything into residential apartments. But then this opportunity came along to turn this one space into a muffin shop. And for some reason, without having any idea what we were really doing, we decided to do that. And it's been, well, the first day, our baker, who is our neighbor, Pam Solka, cooked, I think, 10 dozen muffins?
About, yeah.
120 muffins. And we sold out at 10:15. I mean, we opened at 6:30, closed at 12 o'clock. We sold
Wow.
out at 10:15. So we, I went back to my business school textbooks and we said, okay, we'll up the production. And we upped the production by 50%. So she'd cook something like 180 muffins and scones. And we sold out by 10:13. So, and it's kind of calmed down since then, but it's an amazing place for many reasons. And one of the reasons is that this woman over here just loves being there for the fact that, I mean, she used to know everybody in town, but now she really knows everybody in town. The social scene that goes on there is just amazing. And you can expand on that because you just love being there.
I do love being there. One of the kinds of things that I love about it, Barry, and we did absolutely no marketing plan or decide, you know, if it should be a muffin shop. We had the space, and Pam is a wonderful baker, and she always wanted her own muffin shop. So we said, let's just try it. And the door opened, and people said, oh, I've been waiting for this for 20 years. We said, you have? But there'll be someone sitting at this table, and she'll sort of look over at the couple sitting on that table, and it would turn out that their daughters were in Girl Scouts together in 5th grade, and now the daughters are like sophomores in college, and they haven't seen each other in that intervening 17 years because, you know, your life's so much circulated around your kids, and that's how you meet lots of people. And so there'll be these incredibly wonderful reunions happening at 40 Main Street of people with Westford stories and Westford backgrounds, and it's just like watching this wonderful tableau. I stand behind the counter and I watch these interactions and I just glow. I mean, it's so quintessential Westford, and it's just such a happy place to be. People are running into people they haven't seen in years. People are eating great muffins and scones. People say I don't like scones, but wow, these are great. It just, everything about it is a positive energy, and we never envisioned that in our wildest dreams. I don't know. So, yeah, you're right. That has been
It's amazing.
That has been.
It's just amazing. And all of we have this system called Square, which allows us to take credit cards. And if you want a receipt emailed to you, because we can't print a receipt there, you just enter your email address. And when you get the email from a Square that has your receipt, it gives you the opportunity to make a comment or rank your experience at Muffins on Main. And we've been, 100% positive. People just love the space. And I don't know how Facebook works exactly, but
We have a Facebook page.
Was it Nico who said she couldn't believe how many 5 stars we got on Facebook?
Right. The Facebook page is maintained by our baker's daughter, who's of that age. Maggie is 25, and so she does that from us, long distance from Pittsburgh, I might say. So her mom will take a picture in the morning of the muffins that she's done for that day, and then Maggie works her magic and it appears on Facebook. So our niece is in Tokyo for the year, and we were FaceTiming with her, and she hasn't been home since Muffins on Main opened in December. So she said, well, let me just go to your Facebook page and see what's up. And she kept saying, what? This can't be. Wait, every review is 5 stars. People don't get 5 stars for every review. Something's wrong here. But anyway, that's been a lot of fun. It really has been.
It's a good product. The baking, the muffins and the scones are fantastic. The coffee is good, and the ambiance, or the social interaction, whatever is going on there, is fantastic. So.
And Pam Sulka gets a huge. I mean, she
Pam
is
did.
the center of that. She just knew what she wanted the shop to look like.
Yeah.
She knew how she wanted it to feel, and she's done it in spades. So. That's where I was this morning before we came in. I go in twice a week to work behind the counter, and it's a lot of fun.
It's an amazing experience. I never thought at my age I'd be involved with a muffin shop.
You never know what's cooking, huh?
You never know what's cooking.
You never know
Right.
what's cooking.
Yeah.
We've met such great
Yeah.
people, Pam's friends who have been there to support her, and they just come in and volunteer, just helping in the kitchen and helping. It's cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah.
It is great.
So I would say of all the things, the few things that I've done right now, that is the most amazing.
Okay, neat. I'm going to play a little music for you guys.
Perfect.
You will see.
Is that a new
Nice.
composition?
That's the front porch waltz.
Oh.
No wonder Michael's been having trouble learning that. It doesn't sound like that when Mike practices it, Barry.
Oh, okay.
Maybe someday it will.
Well, the rhythms are
Yeah, the
difficult.
rhythms are very
Okay.
complicated.
So anyway, I had asked you before the show if you wanted to play it. And Ellen claimed, not that I dispute my guess, but Ellen claimed that it was too hard a piece for you. And I thought it would be too hard a piece for me, and then I said, well, let me give it a shot. So I practiced at home, and I said, oh my God, I could do this with practice. Knowing how much you liked it, I decided to do it.
So what is the rhythm of that? And does it change in the middle? I mean, does it start out as,
It is a waltz.
but that's not 3/4 all the way through, or you just,
Ba-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 1,
Yeah, but,
do-do-do-do-do-do, ba-dum-do, boom, 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 ba-dum, boom.
I'll show you
So the waltz is the
Very
pulse underneath,
complicated.
and then of course I mess, 'cause that's what I do. I mess. That was without improv, but I don't improvise as well on that. So anyway,
that was wonderful. Thank you.
thank
thank
you. Besides being a great guest, you're a great audience.
Honored to be your inaugural guest.
Thank you, and honored to have you.
May we be the first of just hundreds and hundreds that it goes for a really long time.
I enjoyed your fantasy. We shall see.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you, Ellen and Mike Hardy. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Barry. A million.